This is the first of a 3-part podcast recorded at the Armada house during Sculsory Willie Clancy 2023. With great pleasure, I welcome John Lynch as my first guest here at the Armada house here at Willie Clancy 2023. John, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Dermot. Thanks very much. I'm delighted to be here. Happy to be here.
You're a huge guiding light in my career as a musician. I suppose I first met you when I was 17 years of age, and my parents will remember it well because we had to sign documents to say that you'd be my legal guardian so I could go off and play drums at the Kilfenora Céilí Band for a year with my first American visa and a trip.
That was Milwaukee, wasn't it?
Milwaukee. Actually, could have been 16. I could have been 16 actually even. Yeah. Went to Milwaukee, and then you brought me on a cruise around the Mediterranean. But it was a great insight, and I've huge respect for you ever since. But one of the main things I took away from you was the way that you managed the team of the Kilfenora Céilí Band and the band and got the best out of all the players.
Well, I don't think that was down to me, Dermot, really. They're just a good bunch to be with. I don't take any credit for that, really, because the only thing that I did really was bring them together. But after that, it took its own life then, because when I brought that group together, it was just out of a dream, You see, I suppose everything we do in life really always goes back to where you come from.
Yeah.
And what's important in your life. And I came from Clare, Kilfenora, which is 2 miles south of Kilfenora, born into a family that was just band orientated, It was just band. And I was then when it came to our turn, I was teaching in Clare.
When you say band now, you mean that music is just for Céilí Band music? It's group playing.
I'm talking about our own kitchen at home.
Okay.
Because we'll say in our own kitchen at home when I was coming up, my father, PJ, my aunt Noreen and my uncle Jerry were all part of the 1950s band.
Right.
And my granduncle Seamus McCormick was part of it. So their uncle was part of it. Frank Mahoney was their first cousin.
Yeah.
Kitty Lennon was their first cousin. So there was 7 out of that 9 that were related. Wow. And Jim Ward was only 50 yards down the road from us. So that band in the 50s came together and they competed. But they were totally into dance.
Yeah.
And the music was even phrased around dance. They learned the tune one way and everybody in the band played it the same. There was no kind of one-upmanship. The band was the band and you played the music for the dancer on the floor.
So it's pure rhythm to uplift.
It was I would have gone into detail now trying to... Because I wasn't as fast to pick up music as Pat, my brother, was.
Yeah.
And I would have to really decipher it. And I'd be trying to... My ear wasn't as good as Pat's. And my father had no patience. So they didn't match then, you see, straight away, So, when I was getting people to write out the music in that, Phil Canole McMahon, who was the local national school teacher, was able to write the music. And she wrote the tunes when we were preparing for the Fla. And you could see there was no roles in the music. There was no roles whatsoever. It was just bow work in relation to the fiddles, and all our music was phrased around the fiddles.
Okay.
But they didn't play their roles and triplets and that. It was done with the bow, shaking of the bow. And the reason I remember this so well is Pat being Mala fostered in the kitchen over not bowing it properly, because they didn't suffer fools gladly, They had been part of a band that was successful, and they had toured with it, and as far as they were concerned. So when I was in Kildare and I decided to put it together, I was trying to, get all this learned off.
This is in the 90s now.
Oh yeah, this would be the 90s, you see. Sorry, no, I'm skipping over and back, but
that gives us a foundation of.
But at the same time,
that's
where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So when I decided to put the band together, then in 1991, it was the midterm break of 1991. I remember coming home to Pat and saying, Pat, I'm going to put a band together for the All Ireland next year. I said, I want you to be part of it.
Yeah.
I will, he says, but don't you know that's going to start a racket now, he says. And I said, I won't. Like I said, sure, look, I said, it's time now, I said. The old band are older now and they're not playing that much, like, and it's time for us to represent our age group, like, you know. Well, if you want to do it, he said, I'll do it.
Okay.
And I said to my father, was the next one I said it to. And he looked at me and he says, well, you know what that's going to cause, he says, like, you know. Well, I said, it's important that we kind of, you know, carry it on.
Yeah.
So I said, I know you're thinking of putting it, he said. So I told him I was thinking of putting it. I don't know half those, he says, like that, you know. So, well, I said, I know them and they're going to come together, like, you know. So I remember first Christmas, and Peter Griffin, God be good to him, played the box with us for the first year. Himself and Seamus Hines Seamus played flute with us. And the reason that I mention is because at the end of the first year, the two of them left the band because there was too much. There was too much needed in relation to commitment.
Yeah.
So, and they formed the forecourts at that time as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they formed the forecourts then.
Oh,
you
right.
see. So, Anthony Quigney came in instead of Seamus Hines, and Conor McCarthy came in instead of Peter Griffin. But like the first year, then we put it together. Like, and you know, when you put a band together that hasn't, my father and them, like, they were together since they were that height, and they were playing the same music, so it was very easy for them to come together.
It was natural. They weren't coming from anywhere else. Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
And you see, like, if you take the history of the music and band music, in my grandfather's time, John Lynch, the band was kind of formed. A band was formed in Kilfenora around 1909 to raise funds for the church. They were going to renovate the church. So the word Céilí hadn't even been invented that time. Yeah. So what they had is they had socials in the local schoolhouse, which was where the Burden Centre now was, where the school was that time.
Okay.
And they organised dances and they played for the dances. Now, the players that were playing in that group that played for the dancers, my grandfather would have been part of it, Jim McQueenie, Michael Slattery, who would be related to Fintan McMahon and that. They were the people that came together. And but a lot of that group that were in that band were also part of the Brass and Reed Band, which was in Kilfenora at that time.
The Brass and Reed Band, I always get slightly confused on this one.
Yeah.
So what kind of music did the Brass and Reed Band play? They
played marches, and it was brass stuff. It was all brass and marches and that. And at that time, you see, what their job at that time, really, the Brass and Reeds came together because Father Matthew in Cork decided in 1870 to have fife and drum bands.
Okay.
And the reason he did that is because he was forming the temperance movement, and he felt that he needed to get the young men playing music rather than drinking.
Oh.
And it was as simple as that. And the bands came together, and each of the parishes had their own they had their own marching bands. And the marching bands used to march the priest whenever there was, such as Pentecost and, you know, and all that. And they'd play in front of the priest while he was coming to the church. And the other place that they generally played was when there was court cases. There was some of that going on as well, like where they'd march in either protest or whatever. And like, that's where the marches and a lot of the pieces.
That's where the strength of the marches, the Kilfenora, and the harmony in the marches.
Well, the people that were in the Brass and Reed learned how to read music, and they learned about harmony and all that. So there was always a tradition of harmony in Kilfenora.
Yeah.
And even I know I've gone through old recordings. I have a recording of my grandfather John Joe and Noreen, my aunt, playing Oft in the Stilly Night, where they harmonised every single bit of it right through. This would be 1930s, 1940s now. And Oft in the Stilly Night was written by Thomas Moore, which was written way back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
And it was outside of the tradition, of what we would call traditional music. But they played pieces outside of traditional music, but they were into harmony, and that's why even to this day we do it in the band, because it's our tradition. Now you'll have some people that say Kelly Band shouldn't be doing that. Fine, but the Kilfenora will do it, because that's what was always done in our kitchen. That's what was played, and the bands did it, and there's a reason for it. Like, that's the line. But you see, then when my grandfather and them were playing, you have to think that what you had then was the house dances.
Yeah.
It was all house dances at that time. And
so what there was no band then, like that was.
Well, what that consisted was you had a house party that was going to be, it was announced or whatever. Now, they were generally for what was called the picking of the gander. The picking of the gander was an event where if there was a match made, there was a night to celebrate.
You mean
that.
a couple put together?
A couple, where the match was made. In that time, you see, Dermot, like, it wasn't the last dance that you made the couple, like, you know. That time there was actual matchmakers and there was bartering and things like that were done.
Real deal.
I won't go into that now, but at the same time, it was done. And there would be, at the announcement, there was a night, you see, and the two families would come together and whoever friends were invited. And you'd have 3 musicians up on the table in the kitchen.
Okay.
And this is fact now. This is not, some people might like to admit it, but it happened in every kitchen. And the Farratee then, the man of the house, Farratee, that's the man that called the shots. And he said who was to dance and when they were to dance and all that. And that's where that term comes from. But then, through the 1930s and that, you see, there was a bit of kind of, I'd say, the
control coming in.
Well, it wasn't that there was control, but there was a question mark as to what was happening maybe outside of the kitchen. And like there was the clergy felt there needed to be more control anyway, and that there was, and then you got the national, you had what was known as the Dance Hall Act in 1935, and that's where each parish built their own little hall.
Okay.
And it moved from the house dances were banned, and then it moved from the house dances into the halls. And then when it moved into the halls, you see, the 3 musicians didn't cope with that then, so then the 10 pieces came in. You needed more musicians.
No technology because
the technology wasn't able to. So therefore, that's what happened then, and that's where the 10 pieces and the bigger bands came in then. And then Cultus was founded in 1951, and they brought in a competition for bands. And the minimum you could have was 8, and the most you could have was 10. And the Kilfenora entered in 54 and 55, and they had a 9-piece at that time. And then for the 3rd year, they brought in the double bass. So the double bass goes back, like we still have a double bass. And then when they won the All-Irelands 54, 5 and 6, then they were very popular. They were being asked to play all over the country. And because of winning the All-Irelands, and they played all over the country, and then at that time, like you weren't allowed Lent. It was the 7 weeks before Easter, and you weren't allowed to be having Céilís and stuff like that. And what happened was, you see, during the 50s, there was a lot of immigration out of Ireland, and it went to England and they went to America and everywhere. And when they went to England, I remember Kitty saying at one stage, Kitty was the leader of the band before my time, and she was there in the 50s, and she said she knew more people over in Kilburn and over in London than she did at home, because they had all gone. So what happened was that time the band used to go on tour during Lent over in England.
So because they couldn't play at home.
They couldn't play at home, so they went to England, and they played for the Irish in England, like, you know. So, but they played like, and that's the band that became really well known. And we'll say the Lynches were very involved up to about 1959. But if you take our kitchen at home that time, there was five people in the family, plus John Joe. John Joe's wife died when my father was 12, and my father was the eldest of 5. And John Joe was 42. So in 1955, there was an awful lot of music in our house. By 1959, 4 out of that 5 had immigrated. Jerry was gone to New York, and the 3 girls were gone to London. So my father was only left. So there was very little music in our house from the 60s on. And then the actual show bands came in. And the show bands, all Céilís died then, or nearly died. And then,
because show bands were the hottest
they
thing.
Were big. They were really big.
You were kind of ridiculed if you were playing
trash. They took over completely. They were you see, in the 50s, the Céilís were the social event. And then when the show bands came in, the Céilís were gone.
Just died a death.
So there's a difference between my father's time and us now in relation to playing music, because in my father's time, there was a Céilí everywhere, every week, and everybody was at the Céilís. In our time, it's only a small minority that are Céilís. So there's a difference, and hence you have to move along with the times. But like we say, the 60s, when I was coming up, it was frowned upon to play music. Like, you know, I remember Pat and Brian Howley, who's from Kilfenora, and Georgie Fitz, who was from Kilkee, but Georgie Fitz played county football now. And he was a national school teacher in Dublin, and Brian Howley was, and Pat was teaching in Ace. This would be 70s now. And they were going back, and they decided one day in Portlaoise to stop, you know, we'll have a few tunes. Georgie used to play the piano. No, he'd be related to us. There was a Lynch that went back to Kilbehan in the 1840s, the 50s, and there's the descendancy there, but Georgie played piano. So Pat into this pub, like, and Brian went up and ordered 3 drinks, like, and we're going to play a few tunes, says Brian. And your man says, you're not going to do it here, because they took out the instruments that were just going to play reels and jigs, and your man said, can't play that stuff here, you have to go. And they were stopped, and that's the frame of mind that was in it. And like what was also happening in Ireland that time was the lounge bar came in the 70s. And the lounge bar in Ennis, you had the Green Grove and you had the 1 Mile. Yeah. And what that was, you had a small place in the corner for where there was room for 3 or 4 piece band, and you had a floor, and your mother and father, and we danced so much in those places, but there wasn't a demand for a 10-piece there. It was 3 or 4, and the Kilfenora reduced down to 3 or 4 playing, you see.
Wow.
And they only came together then as a band for a bigger occasion altogether. So that's Kitty's group played around North Clare. Paddy Mullins and Kitty and Tommy Peoples and Chris Stroney and those, they played at that time. And there was the Lynches had all disappeared out of the band at that time. And sure, like, I remember when I started the band, there was people in Clare wondering, who's this fella coming down from Kildare, and he's getting stuck into the Kilfenora? Who does he think he's only just there, sure, he's only jumping on the bandwagon, like, because they had forgotten about all the Lynches, they've never been involved. But you see, as I said, it goes back to home. I was above in Kildare, and like in my younger life, I was just totally engaged in football. And I wanted to play football, and I played football till I was 35 and enjoyed it immensely. But then when I stopped playing football, suddenly the music
became your main thing.
And then I decided in 91, it's time for the present generation to see how we'd get on. And I put it together, brought them together, and we say between 93 and 95, we had subtle changes because of maybe one of the girls expecting a baby or wouldn't be available. There was just only a couple of changes, but out of that, we'll say between 90, we won 93, 4 and 5. And
you got second in 92.
Second in 92 to the bridge. Great crack. Great crack that time. It was just great crack. The fun we had was just the slagging and everything went on. Like,
were you nervous? Were you nervous after getting second? Going in with the badge of honour of the Kilfenora.
Well, the only time I really hit me was blowing Listowel. We were just about to go up on the stage, and Tim Collins was in front of me. And we had been slagging the bridge, and Michal O'Reilly and all. They were playing with the Tawn that time. The Tawn, the bridge, and
they were great, good bands.
Good bands, like, and great competition. And you see, the bridge beat us in 92. But then they dropped out for 93 and 94, and they came back in when we were going for the 3 in a row.
95.
And this is whatever happens, like, the bridge has to come after us, like, like. So they competed, but we were lucky enough anyway. I paid the judges very early, like, and we were very lucky. Like. We happened to win. But just as we were about to go up on the stage, I said, Timmy, I said, if we lose this, I said, we'll be known as the Kilfenora. They didn't get 3 in a row. They failed to get 3 in a row. But we played well that night. No, all right. And we were lucky enough to win it. But then the very same thing, Kitty died in March of 93, and we won the All-Ireland in August of 93. And then people started asking me, I was in Kildare in the band, we'd never come together we knew about 4 or 5 selections for competition. And so they started asking us to play, and I said, okay, we'll play, but I will not split the band. And I had 2 reasons for that. Was because there's no way I was going to be choosing half the band. But the main reason was I was never going to choose one over the other. We were a 10-piece, and we were friends, and we were going to be together.
That was it,
And like, I wanted to preserve the band sound. So I said, we'll play, but there'll be 10 of us. But that also involved then... that made it more difficult, because you're dealing with a bigger situation, you're dealing with bigger costs and things like that. So it had its... But at the same time, I wanted to protect... For me, I was there to protect the Kilfenora, and that was number 1. And like... but it has been... But like, if you take... Like I was saying, there's 8 out of... between 93 and 95, there's 8 of us after 30 years that are still together out of that group.
30 years.
And that's 30 years of On the Road. And like, we've been through everything, really. In that time, like, all of us, like,
deaths,
marriages, deaths of family, everything really, and they have stuck. But like, I was very lucky. I really was very lucky because when you asked me and you said to me that, you felt that I had the experience of bringing the best out of people. No, it's just the people that I had were good people.
Yeah, but you do run a tight ship, like. But there's big respect, like, for you within the band. Like.
I don't know. Well, sometimes I really wonder about that, because like I'm there in the middle of them, like, even last night. But like sometimes there's such a thing about being part of a group that's buy into something.
Yeah.
Because last night now we were coming up to play for the Céilí, and I was a bit apprehensive, like, because the Céilís now are tough going.
Yeah.
And we're getting older. I'm nearly 70, like, and they're just physically severe. And I said, I'm coming up now tonight, and it's just the first time that I felt, I really wonder now, the lads, what the way the lads will be like,
Why? Because did you have a break? Or?
It's just we weren't together kind of for the last 8 weeks for whatever reason,
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't for whatever reason, but that's the way it worked out.
Yeah.
Because I was away, to be honest about it, I was away for the whole of May.
Yeah.
But like the next thing was, I came up and I always judge the band. I started putting up. I always like to have the programme done out.
Yeah.
And
so the dancers know what's happening.
I put up on the wall what's going to happen.
Okay.
So then they'll look at they'll know what's happening.
Exactly, yeah.
And then we have worked out our programme to that.
Yeah. So you have your tunes picked ahead of time.
Yeah, but like I was just saying, because we're particular, like we have to hit it, like, we have to, and then like if it's off, we're angry with each other, and there's gnashing, and and we know we're not on the button, like you know,
because you know how good you can be.
Well, it's just you want it to be as it should be, like
exactly.
But the next thing was I was putting up the stuff. And Anne-Marie arrives and they all arrive and they're above around the stage and I could hear the crack start to
the laugh is on.
I said, right, this is it, we're sound. And I went up on the stage, like, and of course I was getting ragged the minute I arrived, like, you know. And I put out the programmes you see along the stage. I said, right, this is same old thing, John. And I says, anyone need to take over now? Then no problem. I says, you've 102 tunes to go through there tonight. I says, and you better get them sorted.
102.
I was doing out the programme, like, and I just the first time I ever did it, I said, I wonder what agony do we go through here?
Yeah.
And I just counted the tunes, and in the 8 sets plus the waltz, outside of our Armada, there was 102 tunes that we will play. And you play some of them 3 times, and you play some of them twice.
Yeah.
And like we'll say when we play, we're from County Clare, so we always kind of say, look, we're from Clare, respect the tradition we play mainly the Clare sets.
Yeah.
And like we'll
throw in lots of reels in them.
And there's 90% of that in the reels then, so 90% of reels. But like Sean gave us, get this bum bum and then bum.
Yeah.
And you're either in then or and you know after the first selection, like, and like but I knew, and it just last night was magic. Now it was really lovely because it was very full for the first for the Monday night is usually early, like it's usually Wednesday night we're packed, but it just went well last night. It was going great, like, you know, and they were just in great form and good bit of crack on the stage as well. But the dancers were good too. There's a lot of good dancers.
Yeah.
Because it's not this. I hope I'm not politically incorrect now, but like, sure, here goes. Like sometimes if you have 4 or 5 bad sets in front of you, it's terrible. Like, you know, because you should have one of the dancers, you watch them and they can't even dance in time, and they'll come up and say, "Could you play a bit faster?" Yeah, I know. You know what I mean? But like, you just say,
sure, you get electrified from it, like.
But you see, like, I suppose, and it's funny that we're talking about the Kilfenora Céilí Band, but like, as we went along, you see, the band evolved, things evolved, and people come into the band, and I love young people. You were saying, I love somebody young like that coming, because you're giving them an insight to a band and what band is about it, you know, and they're always the lifeblood of it. And we have a kind of rule within the band that when somebody leaves the band, they have to be replaced by somebody younger than the youngest in the band. So you're hoping it'll
exactly, it'll keep going.
You know, it'll keep going, and we have a kind of a thing there that if something happened to me in the morning, there's a set routine that has to happen immediately, and there'll be another leader within 4 weeks or whatever, and that it just continues on. And that's not being marvellous or anything, but like anything can happen. And like you just all the time, it's for us, we'd love it to continue on. And like you see, if you take us now, we're the Kilfenora Céilí Band, but we play concerts now. Now, there are people that say to me, like Michal O'Reilly, say, Kilfenora groupie cool, like, you know, and kind of saying, like, well, not, you know, you're not doing what a Céilí Band should be doing, like. But, like, we're from Kilfenora.
Yeah.
There's a certain tradition of the way we play music and what we play.
Yeah.
And you see, what people forget, they wonder, why do we play marches? When the Céilís, when your father and mother and I was going to Céilís, the Céilí was Caledonian, Waltz, Siege of Venice. And that's repeated. And the Caledonian that time wasn't sides and heads, it was everybody around in a circle. It was a full, in North Clare it was anyway, because nobody knew how to dance the sets until Connie Ryan came in the 80s and resurrected the whole thing again.
Really?
But like I know from the 60s right through the 70s, there was, like I mentioned, I remember above in Kilfenora, Seamus McCormack, who used to play with the old band, and Tommy Lennon and John Brodie and Jimmy Howard used to dance the set up in the corner. And the biggest crack we had was going up and upsetting that set if we could, when we'd be all dancing around the full floor, like, and we'd be dancing around whenever we went to club or figures or anything, into the middle of Seamus' set, and you'd hear this roar, will ye get out? You know, like, we'd be inside in the middle of the set upsetting it, you know.
Yeah.
But then we were taught how to dance the set, but it was Connie Ryan in the 80s that revived set dancing, and then the whole lot came back then again, and that's where the demand came again for the Céilí bands.
Okay.
And that's where it all came to light again. But we'll say, if you take the old band, that kind of more or less went down. They made the last record in 1974, and you had Michael Sexton in that band that time, and PJ Murray and Jim Moore and all that. But they broke off and they formed the Bannermen.
Yeah. And
the Bannermen were the biggest wedding band in Clare. Nearly everybody got married between 1973, I'd say, and about 1980.
The Bannermen.
The Bannermen was now the Bannermen weren't available for my wedding, I remember. It was my Uncle Jerry that played for it, like, you know, and it was in the West County, I remember. And I remember also the day that I got married was the Grand National. I remember Noreen and myself got out on the floor to dance the first dance, and we were the only two inside with the band, like, as they were going up watching the Grand National. And I remember we went into Father Lucknan to let him know that we were getting married. He'd be John Lucknan's uncle now, and he was in Ballier at that time, and he looked. When you get married, we hope to get married on the 31st of March, because that time, if you got married before the 1st of April, you had a tax back. You could get a tax back. And I remember we went in and we said, 31st of March. I hope it's not the day of the Grand National, he says, because he was into horses.
Yeah,
like,
big horseman, yeah.
So, but then talking about the progression of our band, because of the band and because of the musicianship within the band, I always felt like we would only be hired for the bigger Céilís because there was a bigger cost because of the size of the band. So therefore I remember going up, 2002 we brought out live in Listonvarna. We did it 3 nights above in Listonvarna in the Royal Spa. Kieran Handon produced it and Martin O'Malley recorded it.
Yeah.
And we did 3 nights in a row. Your mother and father, I think, were there.
They were, yeah.
And Peggy O'Reilly was there, and there was a set, Tommy Lenine and who was Tommy Brown and those. And they were dancing sets.
Did you kind of handpick the sets that night? Or
you'd have 2 sets that you could depend on, like, you know, they were dancing.
You wanted the
because the time would have to be right and all, like, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that was lovely, that recording was lovely, but didn't we get invited to that recording won Traditional Album of the Year that year, and we were invited up. The Irish Music Magazine had a concert in the concert hall in Dublin, and we were invited to play at it. And we went up, and all the bigger group, Dolores Keane, all the professional groups were there, and we were asked to play. And I remember that night, the programme was kind of running ahead, and we played, and we came off, and we were delighted, like, and I was watching, I was down, and I was watching everything that was going on the stage with the professional groups, the doublers and that especially.
Yeah. But
the next thing was, anyway, they were ahead of time, and then somebody sat down and said, look, any chance to Kilfenora play another selection or 2? I said, well, God, we will, to be sure. But I was watching the Dubliners, and the Dubliners, as an entertainment group that night, won, as far as I was concerned, won the day. And you know how they won it?
Why?
Because Eamon Campbell was over on the side, and he hopped across the stage in one leg with the guitar. I can remember it, and the whole place just erupted. And I said, look at that. I said, all he did was hop across, but he still caught the audience. So there's a message there for you. Now, it's not that I got to hop across the stage with the banjo at any stage soon. I'm not like, but it just shows you that there's another side to music as well. There's an entertainment side.
There is, yeah.
But I said, Gary was on the board that time, and I said, Gary, introduce me to Catherine Kirby, who's the person that hires the people in the concert hall. And he said, I will. So I remember meeting Catherine that day. I said, Catherine, at some stage maybe you might think of the Kilfenora as a support for a concert here. I'll keep that in mind, she said. And I didn't hear that for about a year and a half. Then she got a phone call. John, she says, we're thinking of having the Kilfenora for a full concert on whatever date. And I was there, oh, mother of God. And
was this your first concert?
A full concert, full on in the concert hall.
You'd only done Céilí's before this?
And we'd only done Céilí's, like. So I said, oh, lovely, Catherine, would you delighted? And I just hung up the phone and I just
what
said,
am I going to do?
Expletive, like, immediately. I rang Gary Shannon. I said, Gary, what? He says, I says, you're a director in the NCH. I am. He said, well, I said, you're not going to be a director for much longer. I says, like, he says, why? We have to do a full concert in the concert hall. Oh no, John, he says, what are we going to do? He said. So I said, look, we have to shape up now, Gary. That's what we have to do. I said, we have to prepare for a concert. I said, so what have we got on our side? So I remember we sat down and I said, look, we've got a history of 90 years. I said, Gary, we have photographs,
Yeah.
Let's do a concert where we have some of the tradition up behind us.
Displayed,
We'll do a presentation.
Yeah.
And
Kind
we
of
did
like
that. And we brought Uncle Jerry was
yeah.
alive, God good to him, and Frank O'Mahony, and the bass player who was a national school teacher in American Fergus. Her name was Ita McQueenie, was alive. So we brought them to the concert hall. And we did the concert hall. And that's where the concert, that's where we had to, shape up now or ship out.
Yeah.
So that started a concert.
Yeah.
And then I said, look, we'll do both.
Yeah.
And it started to evolve both ways, you see. But I suppose you could say where it has evolved to now. Because I suppose you would have something, because Céilí bands would have been kind of sneered at by people at times, Dermot. Like, there's no point in saying anything different, that they'll be making noise in the corner.
I suppose.
So I would have that in the back of my mind. And kind of in the back of my mind, I was kind of saying, well, I'm going to prove that Céilí bands can play good music too, it sounded like, So that would have been at the back of my mind. And therefore that would have led me on to the concert band. And then when Emer and Sinead came in, and then Sharon, when she was younger, she came in with the cello.
Howleys,
Then you had double bass, you had cello, and you had viola.
Yeah.
And then we started to develop the harmonies, and then we started to develop as a concert band. Now, people will say, sure, you're not a Céilí band anymore, like you shouldn't be calling yourselves the Kilfenora Céilí Band. But like, when you start out as the Kilfenora Céilí Band, okay, we're not a Céilí band when we're playing in the concert hall or we're playing in Glore. But we still are, because when we play our reels as we always played our reels.
Full rhythm.
But then we'll go back and we'll play our dance music.
Yeah.
But then we'll introduce pieces of our tradition that, for instance, in our present concert now, we play a piece that's called Whispering Hope. And Whispering Hope was a hit back in 1955 for Gordon McRae and Jeanette, there were two Scottish singers anyway.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous piece, like. And my memory of that at home in our kitchen the first memory of that was, there was a Suzanne Collins in Kilnaboy. She'd be Pete Curtis's aunt.
Yes.
And we were all related, you see. My father had 130 first cousins, like.
What? So
it was, so I have an amount of second cousins, like. And we were related, and between football and music, we murdered each other, like, But like, I remember my Aunt Betty, who got a stroke when she was 30, and she was a lively woman, and she lived till she was 64, and she had a stroke when she was 30, and she was expecting a baby, Cathy. God be good to both of them.
Oh, yeah.
Cathy McCormick, who sang a lot around our Clare.
Yeah.
She was expecting Cathy that time, and she had Cathy after having the stroke. But Betty, they had come home for the holidays, and I can see them by their age to this day. Betty and Suzanne Correa, but she was Suzanne Collins, Tim Collins' wife. They used to have a shop in Ennis.
Yeah.
It is Enzo's now, actually.
Okay.
And the next thing was they were sitting together and they started singing Whispering Hope. And it shows you the way people feel music, like. They couldn't finish it. They started crying and they couldn't finish the song. And my second memory of that song then is, you see, things creep in, and it goes back to home and goes back to where you're from.
Yeah.
And you're proud of it or you're not proud of it, one or the other. But like, I remember Jerry, my brother, God be good to him. Cathy, God be good to her. Tara when she'd be home, Jerry's daughter, and Siobhan O'Donoghue, who was our first cousin, home from England, and Marie, my sister, singing Whispering Hope in our kitchen. And the harmony, just like it was sung by Gordon McRae and Jeanette. And they sang that, and I said, that's gorgeous. And I remember the way they sang it was so soulful. And I remember thinking about the song, and I said to myself, no, I'm bringing that into the band. And I went to Sharon Howley.
So you were just from that memory?
The memory.
Okay.
And because I said to, when we'd be get together as a band to prepare a concert, I'd go to the band. I know the band well.
Yeah.
I go to the band and I say, Sharon, I want you to do a cello piece.
Yeah.
And Sharon would normally say to me, that's what she said in this case. She said, John, she said, I will do it, no problem. She said, but I really want you to pick the piece, she said, because you'll know the context of what it is if it's outside the genre.
Exactly.
So I said, right, I'll give you 3. And one was Some Enchanted Evening. Jerry used to sing that too, God bless him. And Whispering Hope, and there was another thing. But in the back of my mind, it was Whispering Hope is what I wanted to choose. Yeah. But I said, you'll have to choose it to see can the melody hold without the song.
Yeah,
the melody hold.
Yeah.
And so the next thing was, she said, I'm going to do Whispering Hope. And I said, bang on. And I said, do it as they do it. The harmonies, and she did it out. And we played as a band. And that brings tears to my own eyes when we were on stage with it now. But like, people will say, what's a Céilí Band doing that? Why shouldn't we?
Exactly.
Like, music knows no boundaries as far as we're concerned. And like, I have a bunch of musicians that have bought into it.
Yeah.
And I want to give them this. Like, you asked me about being a leader. I'm not a leader in any sense of form. Like, what I do is, I'll make sure, if I can at all, that there's food there for when they arrive first. Because if they're hungry, you have a problem straight away.
Disaster, yeah.
Like, and the next thing I'll make sure is that the travel is sorted.
Yeah.
And that you have the problem seen before it arises.
Yeah.
And you have it dealt with before it arises.
Yeah.
And then, like, give them the space to do what they do well. Because if I was to set the bar with my musicianship or with my... then the bar is set to your standard, or the bar is what would I say, it's confined.
Yeah.
But you open it up to a band like what we have, and no, look, I suppose it's for somebody else to say, but I love the musicians that are in our band, and they're great, and they buy in, and the time that they spend, like, I mean, to prepare a piece that we'll do where you're going to involve 13 people, and you have people coming in and out, and you have harmonies coming in and out, and that. And when I sit, that's my payment, Dermot. When it's sitting there and you hear what's around you. And that has nothing to do with me. That's to do with all the arrangers that are in the band. And everybody brings something to the band.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. Yeah. And we slag the daylights out of each other. But I would go anywhere for that band.
Yeah.
I would, because we've been through it.
Yeah.
And we have, like... when you go through the miles and the hardship, you came to us with Milwaukee,
Yeah.
Because I remember, I don't know if it was that trip that we were on. Do you remember when we were on the plane and we saw the piano going out?
Oh,
and the piano was being fired around the place.
That wasn't that trip. It was the trip before.
It was the trip before, like, and Aidan and Fintan had to get off, like, because, and we didn't know whether we were going to be able to get on back on the plane or not, because the piano wasn't coming with us, and Fintan was having palpitations because the piano wasn't coming with us. So there are funny stories and there's great fun, but like, there's hardship 2 times. Like, our day when we're doing a concert, if we have to do a concert, we'll say in Wexford, Wexford, we'll say in the Opera House in Wexford. We have to be there at 3 o'clock. That means we leave at 11 o'clock in the morning. We have to be there at 3 o'clock. We'll play solid from 3 to 6, kind of getting the sound check. And the bigger the group, the bigger. No, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying this is our day. My job is have us off the stage if at all possible by 6 o'clock, and we've the food then for 3/4 of an hour downtime. Uniforms on, up, bang. That's our day. You go from 8, it'll be about 10:30 to 10 to 11. You go out, you meet the people, 11:30, get the stuff tucked away, and you're 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. By the time you're home. And sometimes now, like the way I have a rule now, kind of, I sound like a dictator, don't I? But we have a rule within the band now that if it's beyond 2.5 hours now, we have to accommodate because I don't want anybody in our band ever to get hurt.
Yeah.
And when you're travelling at night and you have so many people travelling at night, you want to make sure, like, so that's the logistics behind it. But to say that, I suppose from me as being the present leader, and I only see myself as the present leader, but I'm not a leader, but I'm there to organise. But my biggest quandary is when I should go out of the way, when I'm actually in the way, rather than, because when you stay too long, like, things have to change and everything changes, like, and like I'm 68 now and I'm in it 32 years, like, and to keep it fresh and keep it, you have to stand back and ask, are you the problem? But so far, like, it's so far I don't think, but if it's not going forward, then it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, like, that if it's not going forward and you're not trying to make it go forward, because in music, as you know, it's cyclical, and sometimes but what you have to be doing is you have to be trying to go forward.
Yeah.
I'll tell you just one funny story about how things can go really wrong on you. When we're doing concerts, I always try to do one thing that's just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
A bit of fun.
Yeah.
Now, you see, you have traditional music, and there are people that really are the centre core of it, and they protect it correctly. So,
yes.
You have to respect it at all costs.
Yeah.
But, like, when you're on the road as a professional band, and there's no point in saying that we're not a professional band, when you have 13 people and I have 3 dancers and I have a singer, that's 16 people. You have
sound tech,
3 people and you have a soundman, that's 20 people on the road. And like there's no point in saying, like, that you can just sit down. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with playing jigs and reels all night. There's nothing wrong with it in its setting. But when you're playing for a concert orchestra or you're playing for a concert audience, they demand a different type of approach. And sometimes, as I said, we always try to do one bit of fun.
Okay.
So for 2016, I was thinking, what will we do? And so I saw the 2 Gardeners dancers. They're superb dancers.
Unbelievable, yeah.
They're dancing lead with Riverdance at the moment.
Yeah.
And I saw them at a wedding dancing to Smooth Criminal. And I saw this and I said, God, that's good. The way they're doing that is good, So I said to myself, myself and Sinead Hagney and Emer Howley were travelling together and it was in the van.
Yeah.
Because I remember it was the front of the van.
Yeah.
And I said to Emer, I says, I put on Smooth Criminal. I said, do you think would the band be able to play that melody fairly good? And she listened. We would, she said. We actually would. Right, I said, there are a lot of flags coming, and I said, there's going to be 2,000 people inside in the dome. And I said, there's going to be young people there, I said. And I said, there's going to be, and I said, we need to do something just for the young people. So I said, no, I said, don't say a word for 6 months, because this is going to take 6 months of brainwashing by degrees, I said, to get it there. Because if we go in and say I'm doing Smooth Criminal, I said, I'll be shot, like, I'll be shot, like, but the band will go bananas. Because, like, our band is made up of, really, you have half the band that are very contemporary.
Yeah.
And you'll have half the band right
stuck in Kilfenora.
Yeah, right stuck into.
But that's good.
We should be playing jigs and reels.
That's what makes it so
forget
good.
This crack, like, And so I'm right smack in the middle of it, like, And so I started bringing this in, and well, sure, the first time I brought it on, but I timed it fairly well. Now I have to say, we started practicing it anyway, and grand. So I said, no judgment on this. Now I said, the people put a lot of effort into preparing this. I said, both the dancers and the people that did the arrangement. And because you see, when you invite dancers to be part of your show, and you invite singers, they bring something. Now you can't say, right lads, you're welcome to be part of us, but there's one thing certain, you have to do what I say.
Yeah.
Then you're not getting their expression.
They're not into it.
They're not going to buy into it.
Yeah.
So you go, you accept what's coming, and you watch and you pick up on what's there. So I decided, we'll have and the 2 Gardeners were very good, and I knew they were respected well within the band and that, so I said, there's a chance of this happening. So the next thing was, grand. And we performed it on the night, like, now. at an All-Ireland flag, 2,000 inside in the Dome, and we played it. Well, now it went, really, there was a tremendous response to it.
Yeah.
Because the music tied in so well with the way the lads were delivering the dance.
Yeah.
But of course, like, sure, somebody that if you just want jigs and reels, let's say, and they are the Kilfenora Céilí Band now. That's what we have, is the Kilfenora Céilí Band. Smooth criminal.
Disgraceful.
A disgrace, like. But it was one item, but you see what they're missing is, it was one item out of 23.
Yes, and it's to present the fun part.
You were exposing a young group. But I mean, Michael Jackson was my time, Dermot.
Yeah.
You know, and still the young people remembered him. But like, you would have people that would say, no, but the problem I faced with that now was, that was fine, and that's all I intended that to be.
To be fun.
But somebody phone up, you see, on Facebook, everywhere. And then you see, Late Show got on to me.
Oh, right.
You have to do this. And I said, no, this is something, because I know the Late Show, and it's Late Show's tough going. Like, it's a tremendous show to be on, but
they wanted it.
Like, when you go on the Late Show, it's not a case you're going to go in and say what you're going to do.
No,
like, you are going to go through the hoops for that. But if you want to promote the band, you have to go through it. Like, you know it. Mm-hmm. You know what is involved in relation to it. Now, you could say, no, I'm not going to do it. But sure, what does that do for the band? You know, if you say, no, I'm not going to do this, and they say, right, you can't do it, that does nothing for the band, you see. Okay. But like, when we did it, you see, that went up then, and then they got after us. So, and of course, with big discussion with the band, then like, yeah, we have to do it, that's all. But I knew what I was going to like, I mean, it's different going out in a concert situation, you see, you do it, and there's the crack, and there's the fun. But like, going on the Late Show as the Kilfenora Céilí Band, and all that's going to go on is Smooth Criminal. But I said, look, here we go. So we went on. Now we started off with 2 reels, and I went into the. Now, if you actually study the piece, like, because I remember when we were doing the sound check above in the Late Show, we were sitting down doing our sound check. We were being all wired up and everything. And your man said, "Where's the cello?" And I said, "She's over there." I said, "By the way, she has to be wireless." "What do you mean wireless?" he said. I said, "Because she's going to be on the move." I said, "With the cello." He said, "What are you talking about? No cello players are able to move," he says. Well, I said, "In the Kilfenora, they're able to move." And I said, when they moved, they're in tune as well. I said like that. And like, if you look at that clip, if you even put on the clip now on YouTube, just put up Kilfenora Céilí Band Smooth Criminal, it comes up and it plays the clip. But you see, she's superb, like, and she delivered, like, and like, it goes from the reels straight into where she comes across with the cello, dum 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 dum, you know, and she's doing the cello, and she's walking across, and you see there's a bit of call and answer between the dancers and her, but she delivered that, like, and you know, the sound man says, You're some scouts," he says, something like that. "I never saw cello in the movie," he said, "before, but you're right, she's brilliant," he said, like, you know.
The Kilfenora, they do.
Yeah, but like, it's just a funny story of the way things can happen, you know. Yeah. But you have to, like, there has to be a bit of fun. When you're in a concert situation, there has to be a bit of fun as well.
I agree.
You know, and it's not that we're throwing, because I, like my father, when we, you know, our family at home were really, you were taught out straight, like, whether, you know, and there was no in between with them, like, it was either spot on or it was absolutely useless, like, you know, and there was no in between. But they were good guides, because, you know, they told you what they wanted, and they knew what they wanted, and they weren't worried about anybody else, and we had to try and emulate it. And I would hope that we have, well, at least, you know, all being said, I didn't let it die.
Yes.
I tried to keep it there.
Yeah.
Some people, as Micheál O'Reilly calls it, the Kilfenora group,
yeah.
But like, that's the fun amongst the musicians.
Exactly.
And that. But like, the pleasure I get from playing, and I would hope that we give that pleasure as well, because last night in the Céilí, once we got into the Céilí too, and my shoulders are neck today, like, and I won't play music today because we have it again tomorrow night. Yeah. But I time myself now, and my Willie Clancy is Thursday and Friday after the Céilís. But it has been a way of life, you know, but like, the success of the band is due to a great girl from Ballier. You know, because like she gave me the space, and she was minding the lads while I was going. But and she's like, today I'm here and Noreen isn't here, but like she's quiet and she's from a quiet family. Like I often wonder. I say Michael Ayers was wondering what in the name of God has she come in here with, like, you know. But we were great. Mrs. Ayers and Michael Ayers and Aisha after Michael dying lived with us for 22 years, and they were just great people, you know. And but Noreen is because she was the one that was minding home while I was taking care of the band, because like before anything we would be doing, I'd be uptight a bit, like. Now it's not that I'd be difficult, I wouldn't, but I'd be nervous, like, and you know, I get this diverticulitis, like, and you'd be tense, like, you know, and sometimes I'd know that there's something coming up, and I get that diverticulitis because I know it's coming, but it's just you want it to be right, like, and you like other bands can start and they can do whatever they like because they're not carrying a tradition, they are starting their own tradition. But I have to be mindful of both. But you see, I think like everything moves, you see, Dermot, and like what was popular in the 1950s mightn't be totally popular now. It's the same thing, but it has moved on. Everything moves on. The colours on the wall move on, you know, and colours schemes change. So does the music. But you would hope that you would be grounded enough, like, to take the challenge. But whatever you do it fairly well if you could. No, there's sometimes we have been dire, you know, and there's no point in saying we haven't. Well, you know, there's just sometimes the nights go against you. You don't know what's going, because I know when something happens in the band, like, you know, it's never the band and within the band. It's always something that's happening at home. Somebody is, and I suppose we have that kind of connection where we're great friends, and I can ring after a day if we're out, and I know there was something, and I say, everything okay? Is there anything, you know, how's it going today? How are you feeling after what you think of the night? But I know that there might be something that there was troubling them or that, like, and like the one thing you see, they're just a great band, Dermot, of people outside of music at all, people, because there's no, you know, we have our fun. But when the sound check is called, the sound check is done. I'll say, right lads, Wexford, 3 o'clock on the stage with the instruments, and then we do. That's what happens. And it is not because I'm a dictator. It's because we know, because of 30 years of it, we know the drill, and we know if we don't stick to the drill, what happens. Like, because it goes pear-shaped. I've seen us right stuck in a sound check to 7:30, like, what all we had to do was just get time. Didn't even have time to get off the stage, because if you can't hear each other, when there's a spread, when you have a stage that's 30 feet, 40 feet wide, and you have it maybe 50 feet deep, that's a frightening experience if you're far away from the people and you can't hear them. And people would wonder, what are they on about their sound checks? You know, but you have to hear everybody. Otherwise, you can't. We feed off each other. If we can't feed off each other, then it's tough work. And like, we feed off each other, and you'll see the looking and the changes coming, and the crack is going on, you see, like, and then something happens and everybody throws up their head, like, you know. But like, I've seen us at 7:30 just go off, put on and like that half an hour they can get, because we're an energy band, you know, and that half hour I've seen them go from to full on, like, you know, back up, and they'll come back up very quickly, like, you know. But we've been lucky, I suppose. But well, I'm sorry if I come across now as if I'm blowing a trumpet or that. It's not what it's just being part of a band. You're part of it, and that's the very same as when you came that time and came with us. You can be right certain I was saying, now, is he buying into it? Or is he on a solo trip? Do you know what I mean? Because you'll see them mix, and you'll see them, because you could have a great musician, but it's not good if they can't gel with the band.
I hear you.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you have a tool, they're always a tool.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and if their heads are bigger, you know, like.
Yeah.
But if you have a group that come together and they're doing it for something, for the love of it,
Yeah.
because that's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
You know, but like, I suppose some people say, I listen to him like, you know, so look at the Kilfenora, or this is the Kilfenora, that for a night. But like, it depends on the show you're putting on and what you're bringing in and what all the elements of the show.
Yeah.
Because it has evolved now. This thing has taken a life of its own.
Yeah.
And it has evolved now to a show even more so than a concert because it involves the lights, it involves everything. And even Steve and Ger Kilkenny that does the lighting for us, and Steve that does the sound. I mean, they bought into this much. Steve is from Carlow, and we're together. I was teaching in Kildare, and he's with us for that 30 years. Wow. Ger is only with us since the concert started, because we started, you know, you'll be looking.
Yeah.
I remember going to Bruce Springsteen, and I remember him below an hour in came with me to below Cork, and I remember we were in there 4 hours before it began, because I had heard the E Street Band being interviewed by Pat Kenny, it was, before he moved to News Talk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Bruce, it was the E Street Band. So I was really interested, because you remember your man that was really well, he was a brilliant actor in The Sopranos.
Oh yeah,
Paulie.
Yeah.
Paulie's the lead guitarist with the E Street Band, you see. But for the 4 hours, I watched what was going on the stage, because I had heard the E Street Band saying they do not know the set programme going out with Bruce Springsteen, and that's why you see he'll call a name and you're on the single, you know, the way the piano player or the brass come in.
Yeah.
And I was watching
solo.
but like I was watching for 4 hours, 2 hours before, and I was watching, there was this kind of a barrier so far out, and I said, why is the barrier there now, why is it not there? And I was watching the cameras, there was cameras set up. And 2 hours beforehand, these guys come out, up into the rigging, right up, 7 guys up on the top. I said, what are they now? And I was wondering. I said, they're lights, because they're lights out
spots,
onto the spots. So the next thing was, I was watching the cameras, and then, of course, about 3/4 of an hour before the concert, out come the technicians tuning the guitars, and the guitars are all there.
Yeah.
And I'd say about 20 minutes, because I remembered the conversation with Pat Kenny, we do not know what's going on, and every time we were walking out on stage, we're up beside him to see what he's in his hand, to see do we know what at least is the first 3 songs, you know. And I watched the way that was going on, and about a half an hour before they come out with a sheet of paper and it was left in each position, they were telling the truth. And he would call, then you say, when you were doing your solo at the middle of a song and you were on. And he said, and the reason he did that is because they were so good musicians. That's where the real talent came out for him. But and then I watched the cameras, because he had a big LCD screen right behind him where you could see everything that was going on stage. They had one in behind the band. They had 3 out, and this is why you had the band, because they could show the crowd lit up as far as that band. And you could see all the faces. But it was an education for me. And I was saying, there's people here like me now, and they're looking at that, and they're at the Kilfenora tomorrow night. Are we doing something to kind of, you know, because there's no point in saying like, we were Bruce Springsteen last night, and then they come in like, and here we are like, and we're sitting around the cycle playing, or 10, we're playing reels. That person, even they're not doing it purposely, but in the back of their mind, they were Bruce Springsteen a week ago, and it was a fantastic show. And no, they like the tradition, they're going to see the Kilfenora, but they will want to see, you know, they'll want to see something like, and that's why we would have brought in the lights and that, because it makes the band look well, and you're moving with, you're not forgetting where you're come from, but you're moving with the times, and you're moving and you're trying to keep it fresh, so that people will enjoy. And because I know the band in the 50s, I have a picture of the band above in the Mansion House, my father and all of them, and they looked fabulous. And Bridie Gallagher was sitting there beside at the end, and Bridie Gallagher that time was the same as Imelda May would be now. In, you know, she had a big hit with There's One Fair County in Ireland, but she sang with the Kilfenora that night. And I said to myself, You can be right sure of it. Nobody went up to my father and said, you can't have somebody like that singing in the Kilfenora.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't listen to you, you know.
Yeah.
So what was the difference between Bridie Gallagher singing that in my father's time and we doing something like Whispering Hope or Smooth Criminal, or if we had Imelda May singing with us for one night. You know, there isn't any great difference in that. You're just adapting to, and there's so much collaboration. If you look at the great traditional programs that are on television over time too, one of them is Transatlantic Sessions. What is Transatlantic Sessions? They are a group of musicians getting together in a house in Scotland and seeing what happens. And I'm looking forward to the day we can play in Celtic Connections. And I'm working towards that end. And with the help of God, it might happen. But we'll try and make it happen, you know. And because there's lots of pieces that we play that are Scottish. Because my uncle Jerry was listening to Scottish radio in the 50s and he was picking up this. Because we play Octor Muchty March, which was a march that was written by Jimmy Shand. And we play a jig called Jim Cameron's. Jim Cameron was a Céilí Band in Scotland in the 50s. And then we play, what's the first one in that? Cape Breton Favourites, is one of them. So there was, and we played, there's the Primrose Polka.
Love that, listen to Scottish radio.
But they were listening to Scottish radio and they played the tunes. And we were playing, a lot of the tunes we play are Scottish.
Wow.
You know, so if you were a really strict tradition person, you could say, you shouldn't be playing that.
Yeah.
Do you know? But music knows no boundaries and it's all the time intermixing. And when you, our last album, we'll say Kieran Hannon produced our first albums. Then Kevin Crawford produced our albums. And they brought a lot. They were professional people that brought. Our last album was produced by Donald Lunny. Donald Lunny would have had no experience of Céilí bands, but Donald Lunny would have great experience of accompaniment
music,
and that's where we needed to be directed, so that we're taking note of what's happening. Now Donald Lunny said something to me one day that pleased me, because we had great chats, you see, and we'd be going over in the van in the morning, we're recording, but he said to me one day that we were over there, and you know, Dermot, when a mic comes in front of you, and you're recording, and then the next thing is the mic comes in front of you, and there's this pause for about 3 seconds. You get, right, we're going for it. That 3 seconds is the most horrendous 3 seconds you'll ever. I think it's desperate. You're waiting there for the goal,
the nerves,
and then you're there, and if I don't get the first note here, we have a problem, then bang, you're in, But I remember there was something going on. We sit in just like this now, in a circle like this when we're recording, and Timmy's over there, and there's two big things beside him, two big mattresses is what Martin's do, to cut out so the sound won't be mixing into other mics. But I remember Donald, there was something going on, he was sitting up and we were inside playing the reels away, and he came into the studio, he was walking through to Sharon, she was inside in a box by herself with headphones on.
Isolated.
And the next thing was we were going home in the car that night, and you see they're outside of that room, they're outside where they make this, and he was going out and he says, Jesus, John, he says, I was in there today, he said, and I heard you playing the reels, he said, and the only thing that was in my head, he said, is how in the name of God am I going to trap that energy? How am I going to get the energy in the recorder that's in the room?
Into the record,
And I said, I never thought of that, Don, because that's the way we play the whole time. I said, if the energy isn't there, we know we're not at the races. So, but he did. The real selections, I felt he got a great band sound.
Absolutely lethal, he did a great job in those recordings.
And I remember it came down to the choosing of the first track on that album. Because we had Adele singing, you see, and there was a lot of songs. Timmy had written music as well. And that's why I give them the space to do. When you give them the space to do it, you'll be surprised what comes, and it's lovely when it comes. And then you're rehearsing, and there's murder while the rehearsing is going on, because, John, you're making a mess of that. You'll get it together, kind of and then it starts to come together, and you'll get just smiling and say, But I remember, what's the thought I was saying there? We were, came to the first track on the record, and we were coming up one morning, and I says, I think I know what's your favourite reel track. I says, Donald, the first track would have to be reels anyway. He said, I agree with you. He said, because Donald came from a different, they were the Botty band, you see, in the 70s. But they're all talking about the Botty band now. You know, and they were really a milestone, and they were a superb group, like.
Yeah.
But in the 70s, the body band, I mean, the comments that were being made about the body band weren't complimentary.
No.
You know, and they became, you see, if you take the body band, you take the Donnan, come on later, you take Stockton's Wing, and you had Planksty then, which would be more singing, but the body evolved out of Planksty, and then Moving Hearts evolved out of Planksty as well.
Exactly, yeah.
But they were bringing a different element. Now, they were bringing a group element which changed the direction and it opened it wider, but they brought it to a much bigger audience. So he was coming from there and I was coming from Dancing a Set in the Kitchen. You know? Yeah. But it's still like, and we were chatting and I said, I know what's your favourite track, Reels. Do you? He said, I do. And I said, I know what's my favourite. Do you? He said, I do. I know track one. And he said, what's my favourite? And I said, your favourite track is the one with, what is it? It's the names of the reels are gone off my head. It'll come to me in a minute. But my favourite track was Molly Bawn, Donegal Traveller, and what was the third one? Oh yeah, Major Castle Bar. Yeah. Because they're dense and it got us. Yeah. We were on full flight on that one, and they got everything in it, and the changes were right for dance. Yeah. Yeah. And he said, "What do you do?" Oh, it has to be Molly Bawn. I said, "Out the door." That's Kilfenora, out the door. I said, "Right." He said, "Oh, what is it? I'm sorry, Dermot. The names are not coming now. The third set of reels." No, it's not. It's not there. But it was. What was the bridge?
I'll stick them in anyway afterwards.
You know, sorry, no, they should come, but I'm nearly 70 down it, so you can see it's starting, like, you know. But they were a lovely set of reels, but I knew because the way they were formed and that would appeal to him because of the changes, and because the first reel we actually played it in a major and went to a minor, and like I can tell you this much: if my father heard that, he'd say, "What are you at?" You know what I mean? Because as far as he was concerned, that was doing nothing for the dancer. Yeah. And somebody said to me, "It's a good job he's not alive, or you'd have a fong on," like, you know. But like, that's it, like, but it was just the musical part of it, like, you know. And
John,
yes,
we're going to have to wind it up.
Sorry, Dermot.
Thank you very much.
I tend to blab a bit, but thank you, and it's a pleasure meeting you again, my friend. Seriously, man. Yeah, thank you.
Said you're a very important person in my musical career. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.